This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
By Hilchos Shinei Makom, Miyuchad to Hilchos Brachos, we have something over here. Maybe we've mentioned this 20 times before in the shiurim, but we have to say it again. Maybe this is the Akdama to every single shir. But when it comes to Shinei Makom, you have such a halacha over here that you don't have in many other shilas in Hilchos Brachos. And that is as follows. When you're dealing with the shilah of Shinei Makom, you're dealing with a serious matzah. A person goes to eat something in the Beis Medrash, and he decides he has to make a phone call. He goes out the Beis Medrash, he comes back inside. He's faced now with a very serious shaila of even a doraisa. Where are we coming from? Shaila goes like this. You have a shaila of Shinei Makom, which will explain Beis Hashem, the Mekoros, the halachas, the machlokes, everything else that comes together with it. But Pashup Pshat, when a person's Mesiach Das, a person leaves the mokum of achila that he originally made the bracha. He comes back inside. His shaila now is, he's got this Coca-Cola sitting on his desk. Does he have to make a new bracha? Or does he not have to make a new bracha? Simple shaila, with serious ramifications. Number one, mitzad echad. If it requires, let's go the other way. If it doesn't need the bracha v'shoina, and he makes one, so it's a shaila bracha levatala. Bracha levatala for Shitas Rambam and many other Rishonim is mamish a doraisa. So he's even a doraisa. Good. Mitzad sheni, he makes the bracha. Or if he doesn't make the bracha, let's go. Doesn't make the bracha. No, so he didn't make the bracha when he should have made the bracha. So what does he have a shaila now? Now he has a shaila of what? Of a what? He has a shaila of being nanim ha'olim hazeh v'lo bracha. Which he said, Kama pa'omim in the Gemara in Brachos, Kama makomis in Chazal, tell us, you going in from the Rebbeinu Shalom. So you have two problems over here, what we call checkmate. You're stuck. You come back after making a simple phone call, in the middle of your coffee, in the middle of your piece of cake, whatever it may be, back into the Beis Medrash, back into the office, wherever you're going, and the Maisi, you're stuck with the Shaila from a Doraisa. So we're dealing with a very serious thing. And a person, Pashat, has to make a cheshbon. Every time you leave a mokum, you, Pashat, have to make the cheshbon. Is it correct or is it not correct? If a person goes to a chasana, what's the head to leave the chasana hall? To leave the hall of the ulam, where the chasana is. These are Pashat things that we just do out of, why not? Like, what's the shaila b'chlal? Does it have a mean or not? Seifim and Shulchan Aruch and Gedolei Achronim v'Rishonim and Gemaras about this. That's a major shaila. A person has to make a cheshbon. As we'll see Beis Hashem from learning these halachas, all of a sudden, you walk somewhere, you make a cheshbon. You start thinking, Daled Amas, every Daled Amas. If I go over here, what's going to happen? If I go over here, what's going to happen? Move. Let's start like this. We'll start with the Mekor Shinei Makom. The Mekor is the Gemara in Pesachim, Daf Kuf Aleph Amud Beis. Where the Gemara says over there, Gemara Pesachim Kuf Aleph Amud Beis. Shinoi Makom Tzorich Levorich. As I state in the Gemara. A person has to have a Shinei Makom, you have to make a new bracha. What does that mean? What's the shaila? When you have to, what's called the Shinei Makom? What type of food are we eating? What's going on? So straight away the Rambam in Brachos Perek Daled Halacha Hey says as follows. Says the Rambam, what's the lomdus? What's the pshat? When a person makes a bracha and then he's mishana his mokum, he goes to a different place, then all of a sudden he has to make a new bracha. Zug the Rambam. The pshat is hesach hadas. A person when he leaves his mokum is leaving his kriyas. And when you leave your kriyas and go to a new mokum, you have hesach hadas. Hesach hadas means that's it, it's all over. Now, Agav, the Ramah tells us halacha lemais in Simukufay and Chesi base that with Hilchos Shinei Makom, we're dealing with the shaila of bracha rishona, not bracha achroina. So therefore, our discussion tonight is not a discussion of bracha achroina. Hilchos bracha achroina we've discussed previously about 72 minutes. How long does a person have to have? Achilim muruba, achilim muetes. Here we're not going into this. Bracha achroina you never have to make if you make a Shinei Makom. What we're dealing over here with the shaila of bracha rishona. And therefore the Rambam says that when a person's mishana is mokoim, it's hesach hadas. And if it's hesach hadas, has to make a brand new bracha rishona. Brand new bracha rishona is required in many cases. So, what's the halacha lemaisa? Again, pasha gemara, mishana mokoim, new bracha. When? Machlokes between Rav Chisda and Rav Sheshes in the Gemara in Pesachim. Zuk the Gemara, machlokes. Either we pass like Rav Chisda, and Reb Chisda is mechalik between different types of foods, as we'll explain Be'ez Hashem halacha lemaisa. So Reb Chisda says it depends what you're eating. Shinoi Mokim requiring a new bracha is tali in what you're eating. Mashein Kain comes on with Sheishes. Zuk with Sheishes now. There was enough to mean what you're eating. Shinoi Mokim to Shinoi Mokim. and according to Risheishes, there's no enough meaning what you're eating. Shinei Mokum requires a new bracha. How do we pass it? Major machlokes in the Gemara, machlokes Rishonim, machlokes Shulchan Aruch and Ramah, machlokes Machab and Ramah. Says the Shulchan Aruch over here in Kufayin Ches. The Shulchan Aruch goes with Shitas Rambam that paskins like with Sheishes, which means the Fi Shulchan Aruch and the Chayr and the Fi Sfadim, it will come out. I don't care what you're eating. Whenever you move your makom, that's a Shinei Mokum, new bracha Rishona. The Ramah comes along and goes with the Rosh. The Ramah passes like the Rosh, and we go with Rav Chisda, and Rav Chisda held it depends what you're eating. And Lemais, if you look at these Sfardish Svarim, they all bring down that we paskin like the Ramah. Otherwise they're in trouble as well. Every time you move your Mirmokim, you go from here to over there, to a different room, you have a shayla making a new bracha. So both Ashkenazim and Sfardim paskin basically like the Ramah over here in some Kufayim Ches, which means there's a huge nafkamina what you are eating in order to have a shayla of Shinei Mokum. So there's two shaylas we have to go through tonight. And those are the main shaylas that a person has to get inside over here to figure out every time you move, do you have to make a new bracha or not. Shayla number 1, what are you eating? Shayla number 2, where are you going? Those are the two shaylas that Be'ez Hashem we have to explain ba'arichis tonight. So we have like this. Let's start with shayla number 1. Which type of foods are we eating? Which type of foods does a person eat that's going to machayev him to make a new bracha when he's meshana his mokim? So we'll start like this. The Ramah, in the beginning of Kufayin Ches, Sikot and Beis, the Mishnah, the Magen Avraham, the Chashulchan, they all bring down the same mechiluk. And that is, we'll start like this. Dvarim, that's tzrichim bracha achroina b'mkoima. Anything that requires the bracha achroina to be made in the mokim where you ate it is not subject to the halachas of shinoi mokim. Which means, if you eat something that you have to make the bracha achroina in that mokim, there's no shinoi mokim. So what does that mean? Right? First of all, what's the lomdus? So lomdus zuk the achroinim pshat like this. Since I have to go back to my original place, and the lomdus of shinoi mokim was what? Hesach hadas. Hesach hadas is the pshat that I'm eating over here, and I'm going out as Messiah Daito. Oh, but if I know that I have to come back to this place to make my bracha achroina to bench, then how do you say hesach hadas? There's no hesach hadas in that case. Hesach hadas, the pshat, I'm eating here, I'm going outside, I'm cold too. We don't have such a case. Because in the case of, for example, anything that requires the bracha achroina to be made here, where I eat, so even if you go outside, there's no hesach hadas, I don't have to come back inside. That's the lomdus. What's the halacha lemaisa? Which type of food is a dover that requires the bracha achroina b'mkaimai? So the Shulchan Aruch and Sif Hey brings a huge machlokes. Yesh oimrim shivas aminim, yesh oimrim mazonos. Comes along the Ramah and Sif Hey and says pas. Only pas. Pas is the only thing when a person washes and eats bread, he has to bench b'mkaimai. Minel the Ramah passes the only thing that if you eat it here and you go outside to make a phone call on the street, come back inside and continue eating, you do not have to make a new bracha Rishona. Agav, in Hilchos Shinei Mokum, by the way, in both cases you have to make a bracha. Meaning like this: if I eat over here right now something that requires a shayla bracha of Shinei Mokum, and I go to the street and I want to continue eating the same item I had in my hand the whole time, and use a new bracha Rishona. The same would be if I come back to the place and having the same cup of Coke or the same coffee or whatever it is in my mokum. Both cases, one's to make a shinei mokum, both outside on the street and inside, is a shayla bracha v'shayna. You go outside with your coffee and your telephone, and you go outside to the street, you have a shayla shinei mokum. You have to make another shahakal on the coffee right now. You made a shinei mokum. As we'll explain what means a shinei mokum. But halacha like this. Says the Mishnah Berurah again. Huge machlokes. What is something that requires the bracha achroina b'mkaimai? Maybe shivas aminim, maybe it's mazonos, maybe it's pas. So the Maisa. The Mishnah Berurah says like this: the pshara is we're choishish for all shitas, which means lichatchila, do not make a shinoi mokaim, even by shivas aminim and even by mazonos. Bidi eved, if you did, you will not have to make a new bracha b'shayna. Which means the psak so far is: a person eats a piece of mazonos, a biscuit, a cake. A person has some grapes, shivas aminim. He goes outside, he makes a real shinoi mokim. He comes back inside, again, lechatchila shouldn't have done it. b'di'evet, he will not have to make a new bracha rishayna, even though he did a good shinei mokum. What's the pshat? Pshat is because with choishish, for those that hold that since these are not subject to hilchos shinei mokum, you don't make a new bracha rishayna. So that's what we do by Shivas Aminim, and that's what we do by Mezainis. Lachatchila, Rabbi said, Lachatchila Yidin, don't go outside. Oh, but b'di'evet, if you did, you forgot, this, that, and the other, whatever, Beseda. Then you can come inside and you do not have to make a new bracha rishayna. Agav, rice does not have the mind of Mezainis. So if you're eating rice for supper and you go outside, you come back inside, you do not have the head of Mezainis on b'di'evet, then you will have to make a new bracha rishayna on your rice. We'll explain Be'ez Hashem what means a shinei mokum soon. Das doesn't help. Oh, we're going to get to that. That's what we're going to get to. That's our shiurim pass. So first of all, let's go back to the Ramah. A person washes, he eats bread, he sits down to a gavaldik gesida. Now what? He goes outside to make a phone call outside on the street. He comes back inside. Ma halacha? He doesn't have to make a new bracha b'shayna. That's another portion. Now the shayla is, how much bread did you have to eat originally for it to be mutter? So the Mishabura's shita is you have to eat a kazayis. That means if you eat a kazayis of bread to begin with, then if you do the shinei mokum afterwards, you don't have to come back and make a brand new bracha. Oh, but less than a kazayis of mashma, you would. So the Shulchan Aruch no. I feel if it's less than a kazayis, oh, but this is something which a person is conveying suda on, and he has to bench after it's been koimai. So the Shulchan Aruch I feel if you have less than a kazayis, it's beseda. You don't have to make a new bracha b'shayna. Does not have to make a new bracha rishayna. Bracha cholim is no shayla over here. And bracha cholim has to bench. He has to bench. No, he had everything else. He had rice, he had chicken, he had this, potatoes. He had less than a kazayis. Look at the Shulchan Aruch. He would still be mekel. Could be shabu. It's not poshut. Because they're less than a kazayis. It's a pass. That's the chiddush. That's the chiddush. Now let's move on. Agav, before we continue in shinei mokum, the halacha which the Ramah tells us over here, which I think, unfortunately, it's one of these halachas that go down the sideway. Stam, people, Baruch Hashem, in chumas, the Olam likes chumas, I don't know, in Schmidt, I'm hearing every single day, this chumah, everybody likes chumas, and it's a moedik hazach, chas v'shonim. I'm not saying about a person has to be machmin, this, that, and the other. But a person has to know one thing. There's no Perish, or Chaim HaKodesh in Perish, hey, out of 42 pshatim, he brings the beginning, right? So Kiyodua, men-based Perushim that the Chaim HaKodesh said. I think it's hey, when he says over there, before a person takes on chumas, you have to know what the Meikadin is over here. So everybody said, this is Mefurish Ramah. Mefurish Ramah in Simon Kufa in Ches. That unfortunately, I don't know what the Olam does with this Ramah. I don't know. Maybe it's like the Friday. The Hilchos, Yom Friday has a different shade in Shulchan Aruch than the rest of the days. I don't know, not the Olam here, but the Olam Yeshiva. About upon him, you have to know this Ramah. What does the Ramah say? There are two lechatchilas when you eat pas. Lechatchila number one is, when you're eating pas over here, don't leave the room. Don't leave the room, don't go somewhere else. And people go running here, people go running there. What's the heter? So the Ramah brings 3 heterim. Shabura, other poskim, 3 heterim to be mekel. Now let's just take these 3 heterim and figure how they work out at a chasana. Right? So number 1, l'tzorech mitzvah, the Ramah's mekel. You want to go out at tzorech mitzvah, a person needs to have mincha, for example. He needs to have mariv. No, so he's sitting by a chasana, and they call that mariv. Meridik Azach. The Prophet just told me a Meridik Maisa. Meridik Geonis, this Maisa. Geonis, no Shaykhs or Bastam, it's Meridik. He says to me like this. We're talking about davening with a minion, the Chashivas of davening with a minion. So he says to me that his brother, whatever, somebody was once at one of these baseball or basketball game, whatever, but a big game in America, and one of these huge places over there, hundreds of thousands of people over there. Comes a Maisa. The kids say, "Really, is over here? Dav mincha, and he eat dav mincha." So what does he do? He thinks, how's he going to get a minion together? Mamish, there's Yidden there, but they're all over the place. So how's he going to get them together? See, listen to Goinis. He goes to the lost and found room, right? It's always like in a place where people lose things, they put things over there, and you can claim it after. Lost and found room. So he goes over there, and he says to the people there, you have to help me out. I lost my brother. I can't find my brother. He says, your brother? What's your brother's name? His name is Mincha. Okay, no problem. Mincha, please come to the lost and found. That was announced by all the people over there. It's mamish goinus. It's like upon him, in the middle of a chasana, and you have to go along and have Mincha. No. What do? You go outside, zuk the Ramah, you're not allowed to leave the mokoim, but the tzorech mitzvah is mutter. Number 2, zuk the mishabura, if it's only for a short time, it's also mutter. You're going out, posh it just because he needs to go give someone their cell phone and then come back inside, but say the gomel. I feel if you're not lechatchila allowed, but a short time it can be mekel. Number 3, No, but what? Oh, but there's a din lechatchila. What's this din lechatchila coming from? You're going to forget to bench. New chashash. It's a din lechatchila of the Ramah. But for all the chumras of everything else that everyone takes on this halacha lemaisa of the Ramah of din lechatchila. You're not allowed to leave. The third heter would be what? Third heter is if you're going to eat somewhere else. For example, a yid's going to the tish. What's the shayla? You're leaving in the middle of the suda, you're going to the tish. That's mutter. Because over there, I'm eating over there. When you're eating over there, I'm allowed to leave my mokim here because I have a mokim over there that I'm going to. So take all these three heterim and apply it when a person is sitting by a heilige chasana and the Rav gets up to darshan, right? What heter do you have to leave the hall? I don't know, mitzvah, I haven't got, right? It's a shayla from who knows what of embarrassing somebody else. Number two, a short time, mistoma, you're not going out for a short time in such a mitzias, because it depends on who's speaking. And number three, l'chayru, you're not going to eat out somewhere else either. So I don't know, every single person that leaves the chasna hall is ayvon in the fush of the lechatchila v'ramah. Say they're taking all the chumras. Oh, but here's the lechatchila of the ramah. Number two, there's a Bach, famous Bach. The Bach writes, and it's a major chiddush, the Bach wants to taina lechatchila, nothing to do with forgetting to make the bracha achoyna. Or bezuk the Bach, we want a person to make the bracha achoyna before you leave your makom. You've got to make it here. Now, the feed the Bach, what are you going to do to go outside? When a person, for example, goes to a tish, now, you're not making it over there. You're over on the Bach, you're choyluk on the Bach. So over here, das will help. Meaning, normally, as we'll explain Beis Hashem, das is not always a heter. But in the case of a lechatchila of the Bach, of to make the bracha achoyna over here, and my das b'shas the tilis sedayim and hamoitzi originally was to finish my suda by the Rebbe by the tish, lechatchila is b'seidik gomor. Because over here it's only a din lechatchila. If you have das, it makes it mamash lechatchila to go there without any shayla whatsoever. So that is the sugya of pas, which means the sugya until now is anything that requires the bracha achoyna to be made in this makom where you ate it. There's no shini makom. Lechatchila by mezonis and shivas aminim, but the eved no bracha was shown in that case. By pas even with the eved, even lechatchila. There's certain times we could be mekel lechatchila, tzarich mitzvah miyad. Okay, let's go back to dvorim shaloi tzrichim bracha achoyna b'koimam. What if you have rave of the foods that we eat? Coca-Cola, sweets, vegetables, fruits, rice cakes, all of these things. People, Baruch Hashem, and eat in abundance, as we mentioned previously, right, from the Kamam Gedolim, people just eat to stand. There's no Seder Advarim anymore to what people used to eat, can Seder every 6 hours or 3 hours, whatever it is. Oh, but Lemaisa, everyone just eats. So what do you do Lemaisa? You're sitting in the Beis Medrash, you're sitting in the office, wherever you are, you're drinking a cup of Coke. A cup of Coke does not require bracha choynim b'mkayma. You can make a bona fide outside. Im came. Azoi paskin halacha in shitas haramah, Mr. Brewer, not like the Shulchan Aruch, that anything that does not require bracha b'mkayma has a shayla of shini makayim. The main has a shayla of shini makayim. You have to make a brand new bracha rishayna. So again, we haven't yet decided or even discussed what means a shini makayim, but we'll get there. Oh, but Deval, what are we saying? If you do make one of these shinei mokum shaylas, and you're eating something like a piece of chocolate, a sweet, a packet of crisps, a can of Coke, a coffee, a bekitza, bona fide in yonim, it requires a bracha v'shoyna when you come back inside. And if you don't make that bracha v'shoyna, Hashem yirachem. Mamish ki'ilu goyne from das elyon, ki'ilu goyne from Knesset Yisrael, as steht in Chazal, kama mekaymes. Who wants to be over on such a thing? Maybe a person have to know the cheshbon. So that's over there. Now, let's go a little bit step weiter in this tekuda. There's a modige be'alocha. The be'alocha writes over here, what would be the case if a person washes on bread? He eats bread, and then in the middle of the meal he eats a piece of meat. And he goes out, and he comes back inside. So, zicha on the bread, that's something we can do. What's on the meat? If I'm eating bread, I'm eating meat, all one sudim, and maybe that doesn't make any bracha. Maybe. Let's take the case now, what's negate to us. You're sitting at your desk, and you're eating a piece of cake and a cup of coffee. So, now you go outside to make a phone call, you come back inside. So now you're clearing the shayla. Mitzad the mezainos, I don't have to make a new bracha. Why? Because the Maisa, b'di'evet, we said mezainos is, needs bracha b'mkaimai, no shinemakim. But I had a coffee. So what's with the coffee? Do we say that ki'ilu I'm eating them together, and just like when I have the bread and the meat is nigra achar, the bread doesn't require bracha v'shoyna, even though theoretically it should. But maybe the same thing over here. That be'etzam I'm having a mezainos, nigra achar is the coffee, and maybe I shouldn't have to make a new bracha v'shoyna on the coffee. Tremendous machlokes haposkim la'alocha. Rav Elyashiv Zatzal held no shayches. Rav Elyashiv held you make a bracha v'shoyna on the coffee and on the mezainos not. Rav Steinberg did not hold this way. Rav Steinberg held Lemaisa, that it's considered to be a shaykhus, and therefore according to Rav Steinberg, you do not have to make a new bracha. And Rabbi, I want to tell you, look how it's mustaba to be mekel. What's the pshat? Let's go with the lomdus of the Brachos Halacha. What's the Brachos Halacha saying? The Brachos Halacha is saying that since I have to come back inside my house to eat the bread and to bench afterwards, so the male on the meat also have to come inside. Maybe because we hear the same thing. Since lechatchila I have to come in to make about ala michi on the cake because I ate cake, so the male on the coffee also have to come inside. And since we can say that, we can say l'choyra like Rav Steinberg that the ma'isa, if you're eating a mazonis plus a shahakol, then the ma'isa, even if you make a shini mokum, you do not have to make a new bracha v'shayna in that case. Not dafka. Oh, and they have to eat them together, Pashtas. Pashtas have to eat them together. No, at the same time as the shaykhs. That's good enough. That's mamish good enough. Now, let's go to the second chelik of the shir. The second chelik is, what on earth is shini mokum? And we discussed the whole time, the last 50 times, we probably said, I don't know, shini mokum 50 times, right? It's like, I once give a shir, nechos bayra, mamish chos shayla bayra, this way, that way, the mamish gaval the shir, with the backwards and forwards, Allah Beis Hora'ah comes up after, says me, and this is mamish murdik. Just what's the word bayra? What does that mean? Right? So we said shini mokum 50 times. What's a shini mokum b'chlal? So it goes like this. There's 4 halakim in shini mokum. There's 4 type of locations that require shini mokum, a shayla. Number 1, mi bayis lebayis. Number 2, mi cheder lecheder. Number 3, mi pina lepina. And number 4 is a shetach v'suach, and open areas. We'll explain Be'ez Hashem. So let's start number 1, mi bayis lebayis. When a person goes from house to house, what's the halacha in such a case? Right? Let's take a regular case of chutzlaritz, right? 2 houses in a street, you walk out your front door, you go onto the street, and you walk into his house. What's the halacha? You go knock on his door for a bag of sugar, you come back into your house, I want to continue my coffee. What's the halacha in such a case? What's the halacha? So Lemaisa, that is a real shinoi mokoim that requires a new bracha v'shayna if you're eating things like bone nefashis and yonim. Das over here is a major machlokes haposkim. Lemaisa, we paskim das doesn't help. It means, if I know better when I'm making my bracha, I'm going to go and visit somebody else's house, then das is not going to help me. Das does not work. Royas mekoimoi is a major shayla. The Magen Avram, the Shulchan Aruch Harav, and others want to taina that if Royas mekoimoi, for example, I walk out of my front door onto the street and I can still see inside my front door, so according to many Gedolei Achronim, there's no shayla shneimokim in such a case. Why? Royas mekoimoi. The Mishnah Berurah doesn't like it. The Mishnah Berurah says no, it doesn't help. According to the psak of the Mishnah Berurah, Rois Mekayim doesn't help. Das doesn't help. When a person goes with bayis to bayis, it's all over. You have to make a brand new bracha v'shayna. So double pasha. Take the Beis Medrash over here. A person walks out into the street, onto the rechoy. It's a vada pasha. He's drinking his coke. Whether he's got his coke in his hand, or he's got his coke on the table, he comes back, or he wants to drink outside. I know you're there, I don't know, I'm not getting into that. But you have to make a new bracha v'shayna. Klar, pasha. Afilu daitoi, afilu rogil, afilu rois b'kaimoi, no nafkamina. New bracha v'shayna. Again? According to Mishnah Berurah. It could be there are tzirufim by Rosh Mekoimo, the Shatziyim, Magen Avram, there are sheeters to be megal, or by Psaka Mishnah Berurah you have to make a new bracha. That's clear. Weiter. Cheder lecheder. By the way, we'll explain Be'ez Hashem, very, very interesting shilas within bayis lebayis, marpesets, trains, double-decker buses. I mean, there's loads of shilas. I hope we'll have time Be'ez Hashem to get to it. Cheder lecheder. Ma halacha. When a person goes from room to room, you go from this Beis Medrash to that Beis Medrash, or you go from your kitchen to your dining room, or you go from bedroom to bedroom. This is called cheder lecheder. What's the halacha with cheder lecheder? Is the Ma'aser Hazoy. Again, we're talking about shahakol and hadomas and ha'itzis, things that are no shaila of what we said before, pas and jibus aminim and mesayis. Cheder lecheder is like this. Lechatchila, you're not allowed to go from cheder lecheder. You're not allowed. B'di evid, if you did, you'd have to make a new bracha b'shayna. Which means, lechatchila, you will not eat a drink of coke over here and then go to Beis Medrash and come back inside. Now, Baal will explain what happens if it's normal to go there to get a sefer from the Yotza, or to go to the bathroom, or to go to the kitchen to pick up a drink. Good, we'll get to it. But in a regular case, a person cannot go from room to room, even in one house, lechatchila, while you're drinking something or eating something that doesn't require bracha v'shayna in its makom. If the ever that you did, let's say the gomel, then it's mutter, you don't have to make any bracha. Mipina lepina, if a person goes to a huge chasana hall, a person goes to a huge ulam, a person goes to a huge makom, and he goes from one end of the room to the other end of the room, there's no shayla b'chalal, and there's no even havamina of a shinei mokum in that case. Now, before we get into open areas and parks and zoos and all these sorts of things, let's just go back a moment. Bayis labayis. What's the halacha over here in Eretz Yisrael? You live in an apartment building, right? Good. Chutzah, it's posh, you go out your front door on the street, go to the next house, posh to the shinei mokum. What about over here? You live in an apartment building, so you have a huge building. Within this building, it's split up into different people's houses. So there is a sheet in the Rosh Yeshulchan. The Rosh Yeshulchan, it could be Reb Chaim Kanievsky, you wanted to pass in this way. The Rosh Yeshulchan learns that if it's tachas gag echod, it's called cheder lecheder. Which means, if it's cheder lecheder, and I walk into my neighbor's apartment to go and borrow some salt, as the mice is cheder lecheder, which means the chatchile was a bayah, or but b'di'evet, don't have to make a dibach of a shayna. Aber Meise Roy Posek mal nicht so. Rav Elyashiv, Rav Shlomo Zalman, Shevet HaLevi, Rav Scheinberg, Roy Posek hold no. In a house that belongs to me, even if I'm renting it, plus the next door neighbor and he's renting his, and I go from me to him, that's bayis labayis, which means it requires a new bracha v'shoyna. As I pass to the Meise Kemat Roy Gedolei Poskim again. The Arashita Aruch HaShulchan. Aber Meise Roy Poskim go with this mahalach that you have to be machmir. It's considered to be a bayis labayis. What about into the garden? Let's take a base in Chutzah, for example. A person goes from his house into the garden. So Rav Poskim over here hold, Rav Elyashiv, Rav Shlomo Zalman, and others hold no. It's considered what? Bayis the bayis. You go outside. It's atachas hashamayim. It's a new mokum, and therefore a new shinei mokum would apply. You have to make a new bracha v'shoyna. It came along with Scheinberg. There's a tremendous chiddush. Rav Scheinberg said about Hilchos Chanukah as well. Well, you're obviously not talking about the case of a garden, but the courtyard, the chutz of many places, is a mokum that people actually use. And if they use that mokum mitayim, it's called din of a cheder. Remember, Rav Scheinberg held, when you're in your house and you go to the garden, so that's the din of cheder, which again, no, but you have it to say the gomel. Now we're going to the shaila of a mapeset. What's halacha? A person's eating, he needs some fresh air, he needs to make a phone call, he opens up the marpeset door, he goes onto the balcony. Ma'alacha. So again, if it's a closed up marpeset, meaning it's, sealed in, the shaila, poshet, cheder lecheder, poshet. Or what if it's open? Say if it's open, it depends. Again, many poskim hold, it's got a din of bayis labayis, or bayis lechotza, which is a din of shinei mokum. Comes along with Scheinberg, and many poskim over here were a bit more maple. Or where's that say? If you use your marpeset as a room, which most people in this country do, Taka, because they don't have enough rooms anyway, so maybe you use the marpeset, at least in the summer months, for the kids with the toys, or sitting outside, or supper, this, that, and the other. It's got a din of a cheder, and then it's got a din of a cheder. It doesn't, but the eved have a din of shinei mokum, and then maybe you can be maple in that case. Similar shaila in a yeshiva, similar shaila in a hotel, similar shaila in a hospital, similar shaila in a shopping mall as well. You walk from mokim to mokim again. We're not getting the shaila of doimel kenev of eating outside. Oh, but stop. A person, the kids, very again, of the kids, right? They ask you, what I have to do. So if you go from place to place in the yeshiva, for example, you're in a hotel. You go from your room to the dining room. And you had a sweet, you had a couple of crisps, and a piece of chocolate, and you keep nushing it here and there, right? The kid, the Israelis with the Garedim, every 2.5 seconds, right? Later there. And we say, no, I'm going to get to do anything. As I go upon him, Lemaisa, what do you do in such a case? So again, most time, it's going to be cheder lecheder, which means the chatchila don't do it, but the eved you're okay. But, if you go to a mokim that doesn't belong to you, for example, a person is in a hospital, Rahman al-Islam, he needs to be there on Shabbos, for whatever reason, hopefully it's for a good reason, and he goes into the doctor's office. The doctor's office is not miyuchad for him. Then poskim taina, that could be a shayla of bias, the bias, because it's not shayach to you. Masha'enke, when you walk from the hotel to the lobby, or from the yeshiva, from one room to another room, and a mall, for example, from one shop to another shop, so rather there's a mokim to say, that's all cheder lecheder, which b'di'evet will not require a new bracha. Again? Can you get to there? One room with a mechitza. What happens if you have a big ulam, a big hall, and there's a bris, there's a sheva brachos, whatever, and you happen to be doing whatever you're doing, so you're going from one mokim to another mokim, and in the middle of the eating, whatever you're eating, which is not mazonis, you run onto that side of the mechitza, then you come back again. Is it a shaila or not? So Roy Poskim hold, if it's a mechitza simply for tznius only, so it's considered to be one hall, one room, then maybe there's no shaila of cheder lecheder, that's pina, that's muta. If a person goes from the street to the car, what's the halacha in such a case? The chaya odom is mistapik. If a person's in the street and all of a sudden he goes into the taxi and he goes into the car, if that called a shino mokum or not, he says klar. If you're in the car and the car's driving as you're eating, it's about there's no shinei mokum in such a case because my mokum is in the car. Even though the car's changed its location, its surroundings, but the car's my mokum is beseder. If I'm eating on the street, eating on the street and then you walk into the car, or fakir, the Chai Odom has a suffix in this case, if it's considered to be shinei mokum or not. The Ma'aseh of the Mishavur is mekel, and it's not considered to be a shinei mokum. Now there's a shaila on a train. Person's eating on a train, you're having a drink on the train, and you go to the next carriage. Sometimes you have to go to the bathroom when you have a carriage, and Ma'aseh it's on the next piece of the train, right? So most poskim hold in such a case it's cheder l'cheder. Cheder l'cheder is a mokum to mekel agav. Das will help. We'll get to that in a moment. But Stam, I have to mention it now, even though we're going to mention it later. By cheder l'cheder, which a lot of the shayos we dealt with just now, if you have das to do so, it's mutar l'chatchila. Which means everything we said until now, cheder l'cheder l'chatchila, you shouldn't do it. If your das was azoy, then it's beseder. That we'll get to in a moment. I'm still mistopic if you have a train. I don't know if they have them nowadays. The older ones where you have to walk outside. Like you atachas the Abi Hashamayim, when you go from one train to another train, nowadays they're normally connected one to the other. You barely see the difference. There's a little door there. But you don't generally go outside. But the older ones, you can go outside. So that maybe is a little bit worse. The others are a little bit more machmir over there. A double-decker bus, for example, is another shaila as well. Pashtus going from the bottom floor to the top floor, the top to the bottom is a shaila b'cheder l'cheder. And again, das will help. But if you don't have das, then it's only b'di evet, l'chatchila not. A complex of porta cabins, right, which anybody remembers this shul over here started off as a bunch of porta cabins. There were major shilas of shinei mokum. You got to make yourself a coffee, it's twofold, so you take a sip, and then you go to the Beis Medrash. So in between the Beis Medrash and the coffee room, you had to go outside. It was a place of an open caravan. Sometimes you have schools and shuls in different places. It's a scattering of different porta cabins in that case. So the Ma'aseh is so. You have a tremendous mokum to be mekel, and that's as follows. We mentioned from Rav Scheinbecker, a mokum that people use has got a din of a cheder. Even if it's without a roof, there's a mokum to say, like we said by the Marpel said, that if people use the mokum to sell things, to collect stock there, to talk there, so it's got a din of a cheder, but the evidence for sure came with das is mutar l'chatchila. In this case over here, Baruch Hashem, they put the roof on the stomach, that was the pshat. They put the roof on dafka for this reason. There's no shayla of shinei mokum b'chlal. It's ayin mokum, it's ayin platz, it's all one place, and therefore there's no shayla of shinei mokum. Let's move on. Das. When does das help and when does it not help? So like this. Das will not help you with bias lebias, and will not help you in the case of a real shinei mokum. When will actually das help you? Das will help you, for example, mecheder lecheder. That's where it will help you. That means if I know that I'm going to go into a certain place, that's das. Cheder lecheder turns lachatchila, even though normally it's b'di'evet b'shinei mokum. When I'm in the middle of drinking my coffee and I walk into the kitchen from the dining room, it's normally b'di'evet. But if my das is to go to the kitchen, it's b'seder. Let's take it a step further. What if I had no das? But it's normal for me to do it. I'm drinking the coffee here, and I always go into the Oitza to get a safe and come back. That's das. That's rogel b'kach. Zuk the poskim, Zuk with Vosna, Shev Talevi, with Yashav and others, that since it's a normal thing for a person to do, it's daitoi hochi mitchila, even if you didn't think of anything. Which means like this. Let's take the cases that we mentioned before, some of them that we mentioned before. In a lot of the case that we said before, we said by cheder lecheder, going to the Marpeset, going here, going there, tremendous shayla. For example, take another shayla. You go into the staircase, or you go into the the area, not to somebody else's apartment, but I step out of my front door and I go into the hallway. Is a major shayla bias lebias or cheder lecheder. So let's say it's cheder lecheder. If it's normal for me to do that, zuk the poskim, that's called daite b'hochi, and it's a seder gomo. No shayla bechlal. Let's move on weiter. Let's move on to some of the big heterim in shinei mokum. Everybody waits at the end, sometime in the middle of a shir for the big butt. I gave the share somewhere yesterday. So it was on a very shver Indian, whatever. It was a mechudishtik halacha that these people never even have a meaning that such halacha exists. It wasn't Shabbos. And whatever it was mamish, it was murdered. So they sat there waiting the whole time for me to say, the avol, the bat, everything until now was just like a joke, and everything now we're going to start the real halacha lemaisa, right? So lemaisa, you come over here to this shaila, you learn the halacha, right? Baruch Hashem, you go yourself to Kuf Ayin Ches, you see it's mamish ayin the know, the Mishabur brings a moedig agdom of it that it doesn't say in many, many places. You see to yourself, there's a serious shailas. There has to be a more easier way. There has to be a way out, there has to be a Pesach. So I'll give you like this, there are a few heterim. Heter number one, apart from das, das is a big heter. Apart from das, is what we call hiniach miktsas chaverim, which goes like this. Shulchan Aruch and Ma'aseh Paskins like this. Shulchan Aruch says, see base, if I'm eating and I leave people chaverim behind, then I feel mi bias lebias, it helps. It's a moed gazach. I'm sitting now drinking coffee with the ganze oilam, and I need to get a phone call outside. Helps, so I feel lebayis. Now, what does that mean, chaveir? So the Mishabura and the other Gedolei Achronim are medayik from Lashna Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch says chaveir. What does it mean, chaveir? Stam, there happens to be other people in the Beis Medrash? No. It has to be people that you're sitting with as part of your group. So if you have a chavusa, or you have a chabura, or you have a mishbacha, and you're eating together, and you leave them, and you do a shiurim mokum, afilu mebayis lebayis, that's mutter. To say the Gomer, what's the blondas? The blondas is partial. If I left the oilam, Mr. I'm going to come back. And since the whole shayla of Mishirim Mokum is I left my Mokum, since I'm going to come back because I left my friends over here, then maybe it's going to be mutter. Oh, very good. So l'choira A, they have to be eating. Then sitting doing nothing, it doesn't help. B, how many does it have to be? It says chaveirim. What does it mean? Chaveirim, different gears. But it doesn't have to be many. According to most poskim, even if a person leaves his rabbits in there, that's also good enough. He's leaving somebody there that has a shaykhis to him, it's good enough. So we saved now half the shaykhs of Shinim Mokum, right? Well, Hashem, if you're eating together. It's like upon him Lemaisa, if that's the Metzias, right? So you left person over there, they're eating, they expect you to come back, there's no Shayla Shinim Mokum. I feel in the case of Bayis the Bayis. So they ask a Shayla, what would be the case if a person doesn't leave anyone there? Oh, but he leaves something there that's Muhav, he has to come back. I don't know, he takes his passport and leaves it on the table. Nobody's going to leave his passport there, he's going to come back. Do we give it the same din and the same kula as the Niach Mitzvahs Chayvei Emanos with the poskim about the Nish? Chazal told us the heta, you can't start making your own heterim in such a case. Let's move on. Another shayla which we didn't get to is like this. Shinim Mokum in an open area. What's the halacha? A person's going to the zoo. He's going to the zoo, Cholamoid, and he has a drink of water, and 20 minutes down the walk down the line, not a drink of water. He has to make a new shahakal or not. Leaving out the shayla of digestion. We spoke about this last time. Does he yes man equal, not man equal? We're not going into that. Does he have to make a new bracha b'shono or not? So the Magen Avraham says like this. It all depends. Is it mukav mechitzas or is it not mukav mechitzas? If it's mukav mechitzas, then we consider it to be one mokim. One mokim means what? It's like pina mepina, but it's a cheder. And therefore, however far I go, I'm never going to have to make a new bracha b'shono, as long as this manikul didn't pass. Lefizeh, if a person's in the zoo, ma'alacha, you're in the zoo, in a big theme park, a huge park with gates all around it, or big trees and hedges all around it, so the ma'isa kach shamati from Reb Zil Orbach, you can be mekel. You don't see the mechitzas, so what? He said to me like this, kol zman, that you feel you're in one mokim, let's consider one mokim. Now, I'll tell you even more than that. He told me b'shem Shvei Rav Elyashiv, that Rav Elyashiv told him, he told me this himself, that Rav Elyashiv told him that I feel there's an Eruv around the whole shtat. You have an Eruv around the whole city. That could be considered Mukha Mechitzas. The mayor is Mukha Mechitzas, there's no Shinim Mokum. The whole place is considered to be Pina Mepina Ba'isa Ched, and there's no Shinim Mokum. The Maisa, I don't know, and all the other places in Poshet didn't take on this Kula, Rav Elyashiv Daka did. And the Maisa, they go with Mukha Mechitzas that you could be margish, that you're in one place. The zoo, the theme parks, big parks, and these sort of things is Beseda Gomer. If you're in a place, ain't a mukav mechitzas, for example, in the street, or you're in a park stam, and you take a drink, you take an apple, you take some fruit, that's not Shivas Aminim, for example, and 20 minutes down the line, you want to have another one. So according to that, if you don't see the original mokim where you were eating, and you made the bracha, then about you have to make a new bracha, Rishona over there. Das helps in this case, yeah. Das will help us with Pastor Shulchan Aruch Harav. Now, let's just give out two last kulas before we finish, and that is as follows. Two kulas in Shinim Mokum. Number one, continuous eating, right? This is mamish the Garinim Shaila. Continuous eating. Where do you have such a case where you continuously eat? This is mamish the Metzias. So those B'shai is like this. What happens? I take a sweet. Let's take a lollipop. A child with a lollipop. You give a child a lollipop inside the house. They walk outside the house. What's the halacha? Right? They were continuing to eat. So if you say, the Yesod of Shinim Mokum is what? It's a hesach hadas. What's hesach hadas? I have the lollipop in front of me. I'm licking it the whole time. I'm eating that chewing gum. I'm eating that sweet. I got that packet of crisps. How can you say hesach hadas on such a thing? So the mice like this. Great lomdus, and it goes very nicely. But there's a Mishabura faket. The Mishabura be'etzem it's a chay adam. Mishabura sikot l'lamet tesa v'hin simen kuf ayin ches brings the chay adam that says you're holding an apple. B'fush chay adam. You're holding an apple in your hand, and you're going outside. Zog the chay adam nezoy paske Mishabura lalocha lemaisa. That's a Shinim Mokum. What's the pshat? I am holding it because he tells us that every bite that I take is a new maisa. Since each bite you're taking is a new Maisa, if you go outside, it's a problem. You have to make a new bracha. Comes on with Moshe, and he gives Moshe Chene Beis Semen Zayin, and when Moshe brings a Moedik Arayah Paket. When Moshe brings a Magen Avraham that we've spoken about in Semen Reishit Zayin Siv Gimel, where the Magen Avraham says, what's the halacha if a person's working in a Besomim shop? He's working in a spice shop. So the whole day he's sitting in the shop and he's getting the aroma from the reyach. He doesn't have to make a bracha. He goes outside and then he comes back in. Does he have to make a new bracha? So the Magen Avraham, no. What's the pshat? Shina Mokim applies by every bracha. So the pshat is like this, right? The bracha choinos, it's poshut. The pshat is, and there's no paskin with Moshe, and it means from Magen Avraham. Since it's the same besomim that you taste, that you're smelling, there's no shina Mokim with such a thing. Can't say hashkafa from the same thing. So good Moshe, from there we see a kloraya. That if a person has a packet of crisps in his hand, or he has an apple in his hand, and he's eating toich kedei dibur the whole time, every 2 seconds, 3 seconds, shalom alecha Rebbe Moiri, with the Garamim, yet checking the Garamim, not checking the Garamim, I don't know. But if that's what he's doing, so good Moshe, it's klor, he doesn't have to make a new bracha. I, the Mishabura, forget. No? So Moshe Mishabur is talking about a case when he wasn't eating toich kedei dibur. So the Ma'aseh of Moshe paskins, then in the case of a bag of crisps, or whatever it is that a person's eating, like an apple, if you are continuously to eat, it's beseder. No shinim mokim. What about a sweet? So it's clear that the Igus Moshe would make it by a sweet. There is a Ma'aseh bring down from the Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish is walking with a child, and the child had a sweet in his hand. When they walked together with the Chazon Ish from the building outside onto the street, the Chazon Ish said, make a new bracha. I was with you the whole time, as I passed in a Ma'aseh in Chazon Ish in that case. And the last shaila is the halachic drochim shaila. And this is really leading us on to Purim Abba Aleinu L'Tova, which is as follows. What's the heta of a halachic drochim? Halachic drochim is heta like this. What's the yisoid of Hesach? What is the yisoid of Shinei Mokim? Shinei Mokim means I have conveyed this to be my Mokim, and now I'm mashana my Mokim to a new place. Or but let's say I was never conveying my Mokim to begin with, I never had a Mokim. So if that's the case, I'm called a halachic drochim. Halachic drochim means I don't have a Mokim. I'm continuously moving and going and traveling. And therefore there's no din shinei mokim on such a person that's a halachic drochim. Let's give you an example, right? And by the way, this is not a din b'diavad, it's a din lechatchila. If you're halachic drochim, there is no din shinei mokim afilu lechatchila. What's the din of a halachic drochim? So let me give you 2 examples. Scenario number one is like this. You're waiting for the taxi to come, whatever it is, right? You're waiting to, so you figure to yourself, while the taxi is coming, you're waiting for the Rebbetzin to get ready. I don't know how long that's going to take. And therefore you start eating, right? So in the storm you have a long time, you start eating. All of a sudden, she comes out. Ready? What do we do now? So the shayla is, Be'etzem, I was kuvei my mokim over here. I said, the storm I have time to eat. Oh, she came out, all of a sudden the taxi starts beeping, I have to run, that taxi came 10 minutes early. So that's called the shinei mokim. Because I was kuvei my mokim over here, and then I go outside. Oh, but what's the case? If I'm in an ice cream shop, for example, and right before I leave the shop, I think to myself, I may as well start eating it now. Why do I have to wait till I go outside? So I start eating it now. Am I conveying my mokim in the house, in the shop? No. I'm not conveying my mokim there. If I don't have a mokim over here, it's beseder. I'm going out to the taxi with a coffee. So it's not the pshat, I'm conveying my mokim in my house. I'm drinking the coffee while just on the way, while I'm going in the lift, in the hallway, while I get there. That's a halachic drochim. Halachic drochim does not have a shayla or shinei mokim bechlal. On a tiolim, this helps tremendously. A person, for example, sits down to lunch, and he's eating apples for lunch, right? He's eating the apples. And then someone says to him, it's getting late, I think we should go. So he says, Peseda, to start walking. No, that's a shinei mokim, because it was kaveh mokim abih. Masha'ekin of a person in the middle of tiyol, and he takes an apple, takes a drink, whatever it is, while he's going the whole time. He's got his bag of crisps by the kids, and they're eating it in the mall, and they're eating it in the shopping center the whole time. That's not shinei mokim. No shayla, because that's called the halachic drochim, it's Peseda Gomo. But so we have a shayla on Purim. What happens on Purim? So on Purim in many places, right, this is a little bit shver because they have Shabbos, someone goes to Bnei Brak on Thursday, whatever, and he goes to each mokim, and he drinks a l'chaim in each place. So his shayla is what? Bracha achroina, maybe he doesn't have a shayla, he doesn't drink the sheh, not so long, I don't know. What's his bracha v'shayla? He has to make a new bracha v'shayla in every single house that he goes to collect money who offer him a l'chaim. It's tremendous. It's a major shayla. So be'etzim you could tie up ilomdas and stomach is halachic drochim. This person, he's not kaveh his mokim. He's going from here to 50 different places, hoping to get as much money as possible. I'll go having a drink, having a schnapps. So I saw afterwards when I was clearing the Shaila in the Tshuva in Reb Shammai Gross and Shevet HaKahos in Chelik Dalit Siman Nun Hey. Brings the Shaila, mamish the Shaila, with Bochum that go collecting money on Purim from place to place. Yeah, Brachos Shaila or not. Not a word about halachic drochim. So I went to him with the Tshuva. I said, what's the chat? I before halachic drochim. So Be'esam I came up with the mahalach and he was masking to me that the chilik is like this. Halachic drochim if they're not kaveh in a mokum. These people are kaveh in every place. If they convey in this place and next to the next place, this happens to be that they're going out in 2 more minutes when they get the check. Or when they convey over here. Masha'ain came, he was masking to me this chilik. If on the way out while they're walking out the front door, they chap a schnapps, so then that's halachic drochim, that wouldn't require Brachos V'Shaila. The same would be when a person goes to 14 Shalom Zachos, 14 Gedeshim Shabbos morning, and he goes from one to the other. So you can tell me maybe it's halachic drochim. It says no. Each mokim is the mokim is kaveya. And maybe if it's kaveya in that place, there is a shaila of Shinei mokim in that case, which a person has to be careful. But so when you learn these halachas, you get just a little bit of a hagosha to understand that the kavonas and the machshavas that a person has to have when he eats. Pashut, what are you doing? Not only what are you eating, but where are you going? What are you walking? What are you thinking? B'shas Maisa. And it reminds us always that Maisa we say so many times from the Heilige Rebbe, one of the Rebbes that used to love eating meat, and everybody asked him, why are you eating meat? He says, no, I'm forget. By me, I'm eating flesh. Why? Because I'm meshubah to the Rebbeinu Shalom for the next 6 hours. Maybe when a person eats, maybe Chod have a little bit of a kavanah. Then when he eats, all these cheshbonis come in mind, and Memele Be'ez Hashem, it will be mala the kedusha of his achila. Next week, Be'ez Hashem, brand new topic, Hilchos Brachos.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.